So, first of all, as the Ray said, my name is Keyshawn Thomas, and I am a family consumer sciences agent with the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension. I'm located in Bibb County, Georgia, which is Macon, Georgia. It's the center of the state. If you know where Atlanta is, we're about an hour south of Atlanta, and we're also the home of Otis Redding. So, just to give you a little information about where I am. So, today we are here to talk about one of my favorite kitchen appliances, air fryers. So we're going to talk a little bit about several things about air fryers, a little bit about the history of it. Air fryers came on the market around 2010, so they're a relatively young appliance. There are currently multiple models that do different things by different companies that are available. They're designed to replace deep fat frying. Everybody loves something that's deep fat fried, but we is designed to produce foods that have that fried texture, like the crunchy skin, rather without having all of the oil and fat associated with it. Like if you think French fries, chicken wings, they're lower in fat and calories if you use an air fryer. Air fryers don't generally fry everything, don't generally fry. It's just a fancier way. I think it sounds a lot better than saying I have this tabletop convection oven type thing. So that's why they named it air fryers. And how it works is it fries the food, if you will. And when we say fry, we air quotes fry. It fries the food with air. You put it in a basket generally, and that's why the holes are in the basket to make sure that everything kind of the heat circulates and the airflow is equitable around the food product. It's very, very hot. It's very, very hot air in a closed cabinet. It's just like a basket, or if you have the one with the French doors with the two doors, the rectangular one, it's in a closed compartment, and it's very, very hot air, and it cooks that food at a very high temperature at a very fast rate, which is super important to understand. So today we're going to talk about how do they work. We talked a little bit about how it works, that very hot temperature in that closed environment, and it blows the air around. You do need a little bit of oil in order for things to kind of not dry out so quickly. And we're going to talk about oils and smoke points a little later in this presentation. There are numerous benefits of using an air fryer, and we're going to talk about those a little later. One of the things I love about it is that it is so quick. I can have food on the table in roughly 40 minutes, which is great for me. We're going to talk about the safety benefits. We want to make sure that everyone is safe while they're utilizing the air fryer. And it could be a dangerous product if not used in the right way, which is intended for it to be used. We're going to talk about purchasing. One of our attendees just said that he did not have an air fryer. So we're thinking about, if you're in the market, how do I purchase? Because there's so many on the market. Do I need the one with all the bells and whistles, or do I need one for just me and a partner, maybe a smaller basket type thing? We're going to give tips and common troubleshooting things for using an air fryer. We're also going to talk about food safety. We always want to keep food safety uppermost in our mind when we're dealing with foods, to make sure we're giving our friends and family wonderful, safe food. And we're also going to talk about cleaning, dealing with the oil and those baked on or kind of cooked on kind of oil and degreasing. So if you're ready, I'm ready. So let us go to the next thing. So benefits of air frying. Air fryers are lower in fat than deep fried foods. Because you're not dunking that item into grease and letting it sit there and letting that grease kind of permeate that food item, it's a lot healthier for us to use. Now, does this mean fry and bread everything in an air fryer every day? No, you may not. That does not give you leeway to do that. But there are benefits. Say, for instance, I'm following my plate and I'm eating the way I should. But once a week, I do like to indulge. On Fridays, and here in Georgia, you better believe it, we're going to have fried fish. But I don't always want to dunk it in the grease. I still want to be a little cognizant of my health goals. So I would use an air fryer fried fish. And I have a little surprise for us. Little birdie told us that we may have a sample, at least a viewing of some fried fish in an air fryer today. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. Let's see what happens. So we want to make sure that we keep our health goals together. Also, we want to keep in mind that the food does not absorb all of the oil because it's not sitting in the grease. Also, it's sometimes we do vegetables in an air fryer. So that's a good way to crisp them up. Sometimes we have picky eaters and we don't necessarily like vegetables because they get a little mushy. We cook them to death. But in an air fryer, they start to crisp up a little and they're a little firmer. And sometimes if you have someone that has aversions to texture, this could be a great way to get them to eat vegetables. Overall, it can help aid in our weight loss goals because we have to remember that oil is a fat and air fryers use about 70 to 80% less fat than if you were deep frying something. So that's always a plus and something that we always want to do. If we are thinking about our health goals, we always want to reduce our fat, sugar, or sodium. And this is one way to reduce that fat because oil is a fat. So additional benefits of air frying. Air frying is easy. I don't have to pour out the oil and let the oil heat up. Now, if you are a novice to electronics, you may have to spend a little more time reading your book and looking through. I had to play with mine a little bit. It was a lot of bells and whistles. I'm like, oh, let me see, what is happening with this. But it's also a great way if you're beginning your journey cooking, it's a great way to be able to make great meals in a quick way. It also heats up and cooks food much faster than the oven. Here in Georgia, we have scorchers during the summer. I'm not going to turn on the oven, and I definitely do not want to fry all the time. And also for me, I have an aversion to the smell of frying in the house. And I've noticed that a lot of people have said they don't like because the smell lingers, trying to get the odor out of the house after you fry. So an air fryer takes care of all of those things. It's easy also for cleanup because a lot of the components that you have to clean, they can go into the dishwasher, which is great for us. Also, it's energy efficient. It's going to air fryer generally can do what an oven does, but it takes a lot less energy to do so. And it's also on a smaller scale. So it may not heat up the entire house, for instance, and it's going to take less time to heat and it's going to take up less energy than an original stove top or an oven. It's also quick. Okay, so you have soccer practice, somebody stayed at a friend's house, somebody's working late, but everybody still wants to what? That's right. At the end of the day, everybody still wants to eat. So how do I get a nutritious meal on the table in an hour, before everybody starts to do a mutiny and throw all the tables over because they're hungry? And air fry is a great way to do so. A lot of times I will marinate whatever protein, if I'm doing a protein in the air fryer, a lot of times I will marinate it before I go to work. And when I come home, I am only putting it in the air fryer. And chicken, for instance, my preset on my air fryer, chicken takes about 40 minutes. And depends on the cut of chicken. For instance, if it's thinner thighs or if it's thinner breast that I have cut in a thin portions, then it takes less than 40 minutes. And you always, always, always want to make sure that you bring that chicken, protein, whatever you're cooking, up to temperature, the correct internal temperature to make sure that you get rid of all those pathogens for food safety. So it's quick. Also, it's versatile. It's not just for making French fries or frozen goods or veggies or proteins. You can go from frozen to the air fryer. Also, reheating is wonderful in the air fryer. It's going to give a crisper texture. For instance, I love to put leftover pizza slices to heat them in the air fryer. I have really pushed my microwave aside. I think it's jealous you are, because it's not going to give me that crispness for that pizza crust like the air fryer will. Also, I made fried green tomatoes in my air fryer just to see if it will work. I've made steak, pizza, chicken, burgers, all of those things in an air fryer. So it's very versatile. You don't have to just use it for frozen items. A word about frozen items as well. That's another thing. Frozen items are really processed food. So we want to make sure that we are watching our intake on those things, even though it is air fried. So that's another one of those myths, because it is in an air fryer, it's automatically healthy. Well, not if it's breaded and it's a processed kind of frozen chicken nugget, if you will. So you do want to also keep that in moderation, keep those things in mind and consume those in moderation. Actually, this past Sunday, I made homemade Pop Tarts, and I took one and I put it in the air fryer, and it turned out pretty good. And it only took about, I think, 7 minutes, whereas the oven it would have taken about 12. So, just a word to the wise. Also, some of them have multi-functions. Like for instance, the one that I have and I have here at the office, it's a dehydrator, it's an air fryer, and it also bakes. So I think this when we get to the purchasing portion, you can determine what is best for you, but definitely they will fit easy into any kitchen. You have smaller, larger ones, mid-sized ones. So they will fit, and the cost has come down considerably since when they first came onto the market. So you can really find one sometimes for like $30. I love a good Black Friday sale because they are always on sale for Black Friday. So let's get into it. What if we want to purchase an air fryer? How much do you currently consume fried food? Is always the big question. And is the appliance worth it? If you don't ever eat fried food, or you only eat fried food once a quarter or something like that, maybe an air fryer is not for you. Maybe an air fryer with a multifunction, with a bake function, is the best for you. So keep that in mind. When you're thinking about purchasing an air fryer, you always want to think about the size of it. 3 quarts is great for two peoples or two people. 4 to 6 quarts are great for 4 people, 4 or more people. I have a 26 quart at home and a 26 quart in the office because I have about 5 people and a few friends in my family that we consider family. So that's about 6 people. So I wanted a larger one to be able to, cook all at once and I'm done. So consider that. Also the cost. Sometimes, economics is a thing. So sometimes you can get $40 to $100 for a simple compact model. You're looking at 200 to 400 for larger multifunctional models. So keeping that in mind. And also think about the features that you want. Do you want presets along with temperatures? I've seen some that have preset buttons that'll say chicken, but you can't adjust the temperature. And sometimes if you have different cuts of meat, you may want to adjust the temperature, or you may want to adjust the time. So think about those. Also the function. I've never used the dehydrator function on my one at home. I've used the one in the office, but it's a little different. But I don't dehydrate as often. I use the air fryer and oven function more frequently than I do any of the other functions. Also think about space. I've had so many people tell me, I love my air fryer, but the space. I have a tiny kitchen. If the larger you get, obviously it takes up more counter space. As I said, I had the 26 quart one at home, and that one I have on a cart in my kitchen. It's standalone. It is by itself on a cart. So think about space. And sometimes if you are appliance addict, you may want to get rid of some of those that are not in more frequent use. Like the older ones, you may want to get rid of some of those to make space for an air fryer, if that's the way you would like to go. So considerations, space, we just talked about space. Do you have enough room for it? Moderation. Again, if you bread everything and you put it in the air fryer, it definitely should not be eating fried foods with breading 2-3 times a week. A lot of times it's once a week. Sometimes it's once every 2 weeks. So keeping in mind that you want to keep that in moderation. Cajun or charred. Okay. In other languages, we would call that burn. An air fryer cooks really fast and really hot. So you have to make sure that you watch it. And we recommend that you flip it halfway through the cooking process so that you do not get the Cajun or charred version or whatever it is you're trying to cook. I learned this from experience. I thought if I just put it in, press the button and whatever it is done. It was a little overdone. So making sure that you watch it, you flip it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a slide or so. And also consider your family size for what size air fryer that you are seeking to purchase. Obviously, once we're empty nesters, I may have to downsize to a smaller one, not this large 26-quart one that I have at home. Similarly, if you're prepping for a feast, if you have a larger family and you're making the Thanksgiving dinner, you may not want to use the air fryer for it. Or if you have a larger family that you routinely cook for, an air fryer may not be the way to go for you. So a few tips about using our air fryer. You want to make sure that you keep about 3 to 4 inches all the way around the air fryer, particularly in the back, because that's where the fan is. It has to have good airflow. And you also want to make sure that it's well vented. So about 3 to 4 areas all the way around the entire air fryer is what we would like. Also preheating the air fryer. Usually I add about 2 or 3 minutes onto my cook time to preheat just to get it going. It does not take, the 10 minutes or 5 minutes for an oven. It just takes a few minutes for it to preheat. Also using a thermometer. I know everybody is thinking I'm an excellent chef, Keyshawn. I've been cooking for 20 years. I just go until the juices run clear. There is nothing worse than getting something that is beautifully browned on the outside and the inside towards the bone is, clearly raw. So you want to make sure that you use a thermometer to make sure that you temp those food items to make sure that they are at the appropriate temperature. Also being safe. I cannot tell you how important it is to be safe. Things like letting the basket cool completely before you start to handle and wash things. Also being safe, reading the manual. Now, I know nobody wants to read the manual. We're going to talk a little bit about why that's important on the next slide. But making sure that you're handling your food safely and you're handling the air fryer safely. Also, utilize your resources. We have several resources that we have, air fryer recipes, all about air fryers, how they work, the benefits from various different extension offices across the country. And I think they should be dropped in the chat. If not, we will share those with you afterwards. Also, make sure that if you need to, for instance, if you're a novice using an air fryer, maybe you want to use a recipe and go strictly by the recipe. And then you can do trial and error and see, okay, well, I like more garlic powder, or I would want to use garlic paste in this recipe, or my air fryer it cooks a little faster. So maybe I don't need 10 minutes. Maybe I just need 8. So using those resources, and there they are. Julie has put them in the chat for us, some resources for you that has recipes as well as information about air fryers. Investing in the accessories for air fryers. Fortunately, mine came with a lot of different accessories. We have books, as well as, actually, we have a cookbook that came with mine. Can you guys see this? We have a cookbook that came with my version of an air fryer. Of course, they probably made us pay for it, but I'm appreciative for that. And sometimes they have little gadgets, like they may have rotisserie gadgets, like the 26-quart that we have. It has rotisserie accessories. So invest in the accessories that go along with your air fryer. And also tips for reheating. Make things are a lot crisper in an air fryer than if you use a microwave. So we also have additional tips. Follow the directions. It is so imperative that we read the directions. And I know my husband is always like, I don't need those directions. I can just put this together and then the table falls, right? But an air fryer is an appliance. First of all, it's a major appliance. Second of all, reading the instructions are so important. For instance, the one that I have here at the office, it says clearly to wrap the oil drip pan in aluminum foil. It will cause the air fryer to overheat, which could potentially be a safety hazard. Also, it talks about using, there are such things as air fryer liners. And I have a little, I don't know if you guys can see those. Once I take my PowerPoint off, I'm going to show you these things as well. But it talks about using air fryer liners. And also in the instructions, sometimes they will tell you to do what we call an initial burn off. And that is making sure you take off all of the plastic things. Sometimes the trays come wrapped in plastic. They have little plastic binders, taking off all of the plastic things and starting the air fryer. Generally, I put it on the steak function and let the steak function go. And it's going to have what they call a chemical smell. If you let it go through an entire function first, that chemical smell should decrease. And that's called the burn off. Burning off that chemical smell straight from the factory kind of smell. And those initial, chemicals from it just sitting somewhere in a warehouse. So those were some of the instructions for my air fryer. And I've also seen air fryer instructions that say not to use non-stick cooking spray because of the chemicals that are in it. They encourage you to use 100% oil, which is my next point. And we're going to talk a little bit about oil. Using 100% oil is the best option, and not using that non-stick cooking spray because it can do a chemical buildup over time with that very high heat. Another tip for using your air fryer is shake, rattle, and roll. You want to shake that basket. You want to kind of rattle it. You want to flip things over halfway through the cooking process. I generally flip things over. Sometimes I have to flip a little more frequently than halfway through or towards the end, just to get that my desired crispness. Also, sometimes you can add water to the bottom. Sometimes we'll have smoke coming from the air fryer. If you add a little water to the bottom, that helps it not to dry out and have smoke coming from, like in the oil drip pan, you can add a little water so that it won't create that smoke effect. Also, for the air fryer, you don't want to overfill the basket or tray because that causes the air not to circulate evenly. So you'll have an uneven cook. So you don't want to overfill it. You don't want to overlap things. You don't want to make layers in an air fryer. You want everything to be one layer and not overlapping. Also, you want to cut things, say for instance, if you were using vegetables, you want to cut things to the appropriate size so that they do not slip through the basket. And also, you may have to put something on top of them to kind of weigh them down. And they do have weights for an air fryer if you have the basket type, because you don't want things to kind of fly around and hit the heated element that is located at the top of the air fryer. And also, you always want to make sure that you use oil so that things won't dry out. Because remember, again, it's very high heat, a small closed-in space, and it's a short amount of time. So troubleshooting, uneven cooking. That's one of the most frequent calls we get. Everything is uneven. It's not cooking even in my air fryer. Spreading out the food evenly will help to circumvent that, helping out spreading out the food evenly in the basket. Leaving some space for proper air circulation will help. If the problem persists, you may want to try to flip that shake, rattle, and roll. You may want to try to flip more frequently or stir more frequently than halfway through. Also, food sticking to the basket. This is where your oil comes in. To prevent food from sticking to the basket, you may want to lightly brush the basket as well as use a mister or an olive oil sprayer to spray the food product itself as well. Food not crispy enough. Again, sometimes you can raise the rack. Like for instance, in this 26 quart, we can get it closer to the heating element. That will help it to get crisper. Also, spraying or brushing with oil will help things to get more crisp as well. Smoke and odor coming from my air fryer. That's a frequent call that we get here at the extension office. If your air fryer is producing smoke and odor, it is likely due to excess grease or oil in the drip pan. So making sure you keep an eye on that drip pan. If you're making a lot, just make sure you switch out and you get the grease out of the drip pan, because it can over time cause you to have smoke. And also, if you have an odor coming from your air fryer, then you may have to do a deep cleaning, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. Food drying out, adjust the temperature of time accordingly. Sometimes things are done and we're just cooking because the preset time said 10 minutes. Again, think about the cut of meat that you have and also a protein, and also spend time with your air fryer. I know my oven, for instance, my oven cooks a little different than my sister's oven or my aunt's oven. So sometimes you have to just spend time with the appliance to see if it cooks really, really fast, then it's okay to take it out as long as you temp it and it's at the correct internal temperature. Air fryer overheating, the air vents may be blocked. Remember, we talked about having that 4 to 5 inches around the entire thing. The fan on most air fryers is in the back. And if we have the air fryer really close to the wall, it can be blocked and it's not allowing the fan to vent itself, and it will cause it to overheat. So you want to be careful about that. So food safety, we want to make sure that we're food safe while we're using this air fryer. We want to make sure that we clean it on a regular basis. We need to be extra careful when we have someone that has allergies in our homes, making sure we clean. We don't put things in the same basket. We cook them separately. And again, my favorite one, check the internal temperature by using a thermometer. And also be sure you understand how to use your air fryer. And it goes back to reading those directions, following those presets, and making sure that you spend time getting to know that air fryer. So we're going to talk a little bit about smoke point. We've talked a lot about oil, and an air fryer and oil kind of go hand in hand like peas and carrots. So we want to make sure that we give you information about smoke points. Smoke points are important when you're using air fryers because we don't want to have smoke everywhere and cause a potential catastrophe in our homes. So the smoke point is the temperature where an oil will burn or smoke. Generally, the lighter the color, the higher the smoke point for oil. And as we can see here, avocado oil is one of the highest at 520 on our little chart here. Sunflower oil around 489. I use regular extra light olive oil. 468, it has a pretty high smoke point. So we want to make sure that with high heat, when we're doing something like air fryer, that we're using an oil that can take that smoke point, like canola oil. I probably wouldn't use that, particularly if I'm using something that's 425 in an air fryer. I wouldn't necessarily brush it with the canola oil or mist it with the canola oil. We want to make sure that we store our oil properly. We want to put it in a cool, dark place away from the stove or oven. We always want to keep it in its original container and replace it if it smells bitter or off. When in doubt, throw it out. It's no time. I know that groceries are expensive, but we do not want to risk a foodborne illness because we're trying to save a few dollars on not throwing this oil out that we've had it in the cabinet since the Carter administration or something. So we also want to know a little bit about oils. We have so many different types of oils. We have saturated fats that come from animal fats, saturated oil that comes from animal fats. And those are kind of like your palm oil, your coconut oil, butter, and lard. We want to limit those. We do not want to use those if at all possible. We want to limit limit consumption of those oils. We have polyunsaturated fat, omega-6, corn oil, safflower oil, and soybean oil. We want to use those in moderation. Sometimes it's occasional, special occasion. So we want to use those in moderation. Now, our polyunsaturated fats or oils, monounsaturated fats, olive oil, peanut oil, canola oils, neutral or positive. They have a neutral or positive effect on cholesterol, for instance. And those are oils that are preferred and they're considered healthier fats for us. So we want to make sure that we are particular about the kind of oil that we're using, not only for our health reasons, but also for smoke point and safety reasons as well. So cleaning your air fryer, we have to keep it clean. And generally, we want to make sure that we are following the instructions. Of course, air fryer instructions for cooking as well as cleaning vary from model to model, from make to make. So we want to make sure the goal is to keep it smoke and grease free. That's the goal for us. So we want to make sure that we always turn it off, unplug it, and allow it to cool before we start the cleaning process. The longer we wait to clean it, the longer that gunk gets gets built up and it settles in and it just stays on there and it's very difficult to get off. So while we do want to wait for it to cool down, we don't want to do like my 13-year-old son who soaks things for 2 or 3 days to avoid washing the dishes. So we want to make sure that we, wait until it cools down, and then we'll start the cleaning process. We want to clean the basket with warm to hot soapy water. If we're using some sort of brush, we want to make sure it's not a metal brush. Most of those baskets have some sort of Teflon or some sort of coating. And if you use something metal or something that's too harsh to clean it, it will disturb that coating that it has on that particular product. If it can go into the dishwasher, that's great. That's even better. We want to make sure that we wipe the exterior and the interior, getting rid of all of those crumbs. And also grease is a thing. So we want to make sure that we get all of the grease out. Now, I use Dawn Power Wash. That seems to work really good at getting the grease out, and it's gentle enough that it does not affect the coating or anything in my air fryer. So we want to make sure that we clean it really, really well. So we're going back to you've got this. The other thing with air frying is just like any other appliance. If you think about the first time that you drove, the first time I drove alone, I was so excited. I backed into a parked car. My mother said, "How in the world could you do this?" So air fryers or any other appliance are the same way. It's kind of trial and error. After you've read the instructions, figure out what works, how fast it cooks, how slow it cooks, how it works. Become familiar with it. I can tell you just about how long it'll take to cook chicken thighs in my air fryer and when you should flip them, as well as chicken breast. So become familiar with your air fryer, and the only way to do that is practice and by using it. And also have fun. It's a great appliance to have. You don't have to just do proteins or just veggies. As I told you guys, I did a homemade Pop-Tart in the air fryer the other day on air fryer function. I was so excited. I had to watch it because I didn't want the charred or Cajun version of the Pop-Tart, but I was able to do so. So, have fun with it. It's a great appliance. So that is my contact information. Keyshawn Thomas. It's best to email me. Are there any questions about air frying or cooking with an air fryer? Joey, do we have any questions? Yes.
I've been watching chat and I'm not seeing, I'll double check and make sure. So I'm not seeing any questions so far.
I do see one about elevation in air fryers. And that is a possibility that elevation can, and that is why it's so important to hang on to your manual or your book. Sometimes they will give you a conversion chart. How is air fryer different than a convection oven? Generally, it's the heating elements, how it's different. The air fryer has that heating element in the top, and that convection oven will have one sometimes in the top or in the bottom, but it never has one in the top. Generally, the convection oven will do from the heated element is the bottom or the side. So that's really what is generally different than the convection oven. Any more questions?
Serene just confirmed that those links that I posted a couple times in chat, your resource links will be emailed out later this week or early next week to all participants.
Yes, the air fryer will cook different than a convection oven. The convection oven is an oven, but it's not an air fryer. Now, I have seen convection ovens, that have an air fryer function, because I think people are thinking about space. And so they have convection ovens that have an air fryer function. And they also, of course, now have ovens that have an air fryer function. My husband has informed me that I will not be getting one of those in the near future until the price comes down. But I think it's a great tool to have. Great question. I see another question. Do you always add the sauce or seasoning in the beginning of the cooking or later as you are stirring or shaking the food? I'm a seasoning girl, so I love having the seasoning when I start. If I'm doing sauces, like for instance, if I do wings, I always add the sauce afterwards. One of the things about air fryers, because it cooks so fast and so hot, I added lemon pepper seasoning one time. And what happened, I really just wound up with a Cajun charred version of lemon pepper because that, that liquid, it kind of really just charred really quickly on me. So be careful. Sometimes if I'm making, say for instance, if I make wings just to try it out for test, I will do one or two. And that's my trial run to kind of see, do I follow the presets? Do I not follow the presets? Do I sauce? Do I not sauce? But anytime that you're adding the sauce, I always just add the sauce at the end, just as a precaution, also for dripping, because anything that's kind of wet will kind of drip in the air fryer there. Great question. Is there a difference in the quality of cooking from an air fryer with shelves as opposed to baskets? Generally, what it is the quantity. The basket, I did have a smaller basket one, but I have two sons and a husband. So that small basket, you all, was not cutting it. I was spending more time loading, reloading the basket. And so that's why I wanted the larger one with the shelving or the trays. You just get a lot more volume that way. And my family is a big fan of wings, so I was able to make a lot of wingettes, if you will, for games in a 26 quart as opposed to the basket. Should one pat dry foods after washing and before air frying? Now it depends on. I generally do. I let them dry a little bit. Like for instance, if I'm doing chicken and we know we're not supposed to wash our poultry, that's another PowerPoint presentation for another day. I'm just putting it out there that we're not supposed to wash poultry. But anytime you can decrease that water activity, that's great. And generally, when I season, I also will spray the food product with a little olive oil as well to help that seasoning kind of adhere to the food product. Great questions, you all. Are there any more questions? If there are not any more questions, I would like to kind of switch cameras. I'm going to wash my hands and I'm going to switch cameras, and I want to show you guys just how it works in our kitchen. And we're going to do a blackened fish today and blackened shrimp, as well as a faux southern fried fish. Now, this faux southern fried fish it's going to give you the fried fish kind of, it's fried fish-ish, if that works for you. It's almost fried fish, but of course we're not putting it in, dropping it into the grease, but it's going to give you that kind of texture and feel of fried fish. So if you give me just 20 seconds to wash my hands and switch cameras, I will be back with you guys. Joey will still be here.
I will be. Thanks, Keyshawn. We will give you that about 30 seconds to get switched up and to wash your hands. Keyshawn shared lots of information. And so also in the chat, if anyone would like to put any of their own experiences as Keyshawn is switching up and going to show us some hands-on activities. And that's super excited about that. I'll share with you that I do use an air fryer. I use the basket style air fryer. It was one of the first ones. I was super excited when they came out. So I got one and I promptly broke the handle on that basket. So the air fryer works great. A little bit difficult to get that basket in and out. I broke it when I was washing it. And that. So when Keyshawn talked a little bit about the style that works for you as well, I wanted a smaller one because space was an issue with all my appliances that I have. So I know some people, I think Scott has shared with us, he doesn't have an air fryer. That's why he's participating in this workshop, trying to decide what works for him in that. I'm super excited. See some people on from Idaho and from other states as well. That. So any guesses why Keyshawn also said 20 seconds? How long should we be spending washing our hands? Drop that in the chat if you know the answer to that.
Okay, I am donning my gloves. Can you guys hear me?
We can, Keyshawn.
Okay, and can you see my little makeshift fall setup here?
We can see it, however, it's not on the big screen. We're seeing all the panelists as well, or at least I am. I mean, we can see it.
I pinned that video. I pinned this one coming in, so I'm not sure how to get the panelists out, but as long as everyone can
Oh,
see.
there it goes. Yep, we can see it, Keyshawn. Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. Joey is my IT person. So now I'm switching and I am Chef Keyshawn. So you guys have to call me Chef from now on for this one. And I have 2 pieces of fish here. And someone asked about patting them dry. This has kind of been, it's not as wet as it was, but it's not completely dry. So I have a blackened seasoning. And I need to spray it with olive oil. I have a blackened seasoning there, and we want to make sure that we get it all in. Can you guys see this? Let's do this. There we go. So I'm going to put all of this blackened seasoning. And again, this is just a recipe that I have just over time been using. I've modified it a little bit and I can share it with you. I have to make the recipe look really pretty. It's in my head. But this is one of the recipes that I use for my family. And this is this is going to be blackened. And we have our little mister here. I love this little gadget. And sometimes I even have more than one at home. So I have one with olive oil. We talked about avocado oil. I just sometimes get them confused, but both of them have a high smoke point. And then I put a little oil on it. And I flip it over and make sure both sides have a little oil because you need that oil for it to what? For it to cook. We've talked a lot about oil. And sometimes just to spread it. So that is the blackened seasoning. So that's going to be blackened. We're going to put it in the air fryer. I think the air fryer stays 10 minutes for 375. And then this one. So I don't want you guys to be afraid or nervous about air fryers because a lot of times I use the same seasoning that I always use. For this one, I would put garlic powder, a little black pepper, and I love this Louisiana fish fry. So I would put this in fish fry bag, nice handy dandy freezer bag. Shake off, we're going to shake off any excess. And then we would have that and it would be ready to fry. Now, what am I missing? What should I always do if I'm using an air fryer? That's right, the oil. Want to add a little oil. And again, I usually will spray my basket as well. Now, sometimes with this fish fry, you may have some spots, but you may have to spray it when you flip it over as well. So there we have it. And I want to show you guys what it actually looks like once it's all done. Okay. So Here we go, and it's about 2, almost 3 o'clock here in Georgia, and I have not had lunch. But while we were doing the education piece, my colleague was making the items in the air fryer. So can you guys see that?
We
Joey,
can
can
see
you
that.
see it?
Yes,
Okay.
we can. Looks wonderful.
So that is the blackened one that we just did. And then we have a few blackened shrimp as well. And then we also have the faux-ish fried fish. Okay. So it looks, as you can see, it looks like fried fish. And I am going to unpin this. So it looks like fried fish. It's a great way to get things on the table really quick. Now my mother-in-law, she has an air fryer and she's never used it or anything. She uses it when we come, but if you haven't sitting in the living room and you've never used it, go ahead, give it a try, have some fun with it. With the seasonings, I've done steak, for instance. I just season steak how I always season steak, but my cooking process is actually the air fryer. If you had smell-o-vision, I mean, my stomach is literally growling. I'm glad you guys can't hear it because I haven't had lunch. And yes, I'm hungry. And that plate that I showed you guys, yeah, that will be my plate after we're done. But go ahead, use your air fryer. It's a great appliance if you have it. I know one year, I think everybody's mother-in-law, grandmother, everyone got an air fryer. I know sometimes we're a little afraid to use it because it's a new appliance, but just try it. Just try. And a lot of times now, even our frozen foods, if you flip them over on the back, I know we don't read instructions for frozen foods, but we should. If you flip them over on the back, they will have air fryer instructions on the back. It'll have deep fry, air fryer, and microwave. So I think that air fryers have crisped their way into our heart, if you will. So they're going to be here for a while. So go ahead and try it and become familiar with your air fryer and see how you like it. I think someone in the chat mentioned that they make ham pies in the air fryer. Yeah, that sounds so good. That's like me and my me and my Pop-Tart. I had no idea that I could put the Pop-Tart in the air fryer, but it came out beautifully. And sometimes my family will look at me like, okay, what is she doing with this air fryer again? But they're always on hand to eat up the results. Nobody minds eating up the results. So I think that that is great. That is all of the information I have about air fryers. Somebody's husband air fried a steak a couple of months ago. Yes, we love steak in an air fryer. The proteins do really well in the air fryer. I love doing that same recipe. That was tilapia fish, but I use the salmon sometimes. I've done burgers. My husband does breakfast sausage in the air fryer. And I told him that's not what that's for, but it gets sausage done really quickly. He doesn't have to sit there and flip it over and all of those things. So he loves it. So you just want to make sure that you keep it clean. Sometimes you have to do a deep cleaning. I will say sometimes we have to invert the appliance to make sure that we clean the heating elements. Sometimes things will pop or fly depending on what kind of air fryer you have. So sometimes we have to invert it to make sure we get any foods that may have hit the heating element, or they may be like in the cracks of the top of the appliance. So definitely, if you have to, I invert mine about once a month and clean the top of it, and it gets pretty gnarly on the top after so much use in the Thomas household.